advise people as they're early on in their startup journeys and they have the opportunities to meet with the customers and meet with the partners and meet with potential acquirers? How do you navigate that to make sure that you're actually having a real conversation versus some bullshit presentation that you put together, the night before?
Yeah, so I mean, at the high level, I think a founder is really made not when they decide to start a company or they even raise millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars. The founder is really made is when they get feedback from the market and they interpret it correctly, and that's a very ambiguous thing. And so you have lots of people who are like, "Oh, I raised whatever 50 or $100 million," and it's like, well, it doesn't make you a founder. Like that just that you sold some stock, and that's not actually founding anything. And so I can't underline enough that concept of listening is a huge, 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 huge thing. And then you have to somehow use your brain to make sure you're listening to the right things, not the wrong things. Now, in terms of like that practical advice, if you deal with big companies, there's a lot of subgroups in there. If you're talking to if you're a software company, you're talking to non-technical large company, the chance of them stealing it is slim to none because they don't have the capability. In our universe, we sell actually to technical companies. I mean, all of our buyers are engineers and they tend to write lots of software and they tend to be the most savvy people. Like a large percentage of our user base of our tools are PhDs, like a significant double-digit percentage. So they absolutely know how to build the software that we know how to build. So you have to, or at least can conceive it. Maybe they can't put together the team, they don't have the resources. We've spent literally hundreds of millions on our tools now, and so there's that. And then the third bucket is so if it's non-technical, don't worry about it. They're not going to be able to steal it. If they are technical, you have to be careful. In applied history, both Uber and Lyft, we pitched them their self-driving teams, which I'm not sad that they don't exist anymore because they both stole our ideas. I mean, we did these long technical deep dives, and then like they just built the stuff in house. And I still know specifically the names of the people who we pitched, who then turned around and then
we're not holding that against them, but
one of them I've seen before at a Lux event. So the next time I see him at a Lux event, now that he's not in the industry, I'm going to be like, I wasn't an idiot. I knew what you were doing. Like I'll pretend to be an idiot just so you can humor yourself and your ego, but I'm not an idiot. So that happens. Absolutely, that happens. So, but what other choice do you have? You got to get traction, so you got to take that risk. That's just the reality situation. So, in hindsight, would we pitch level 5 and we pitch Uber ATG? We had to. We needed information. Even if that information is they're not going to buy from us because they're going to copy. That's information. That's data that you use to change your strategy. Yeah. The key point here is all data is good data because it changes your strategy, right? You can't live in some ignorance or keep. All of our values can be boiled down to 2 words: radical pragmatism for the company. And so you need a high clock rate. So you need to be talking to lots of people. You need to process information quickly. And then you got to make the right decisions. That's basically the formula. In terms of like the acquirers, the third bucket, the acquirers, I never thought of selling, even with Talkbin. We really had to. It really took us a while, being that weekend, to really figure out like, do they really want to buy the company? It doesn't seem like. I think any founders who go into building a business to sell, I think you're kind of doomed from the beginning. You somehow don't try hard enough. You somehow feel like there's an out. I've never had that view. It's a very like deep thing. I think you have to be building a business for the business to sustain itself. And the moment you don't have that motivation, somehow it shows up in your decisions. And I don't know how, I don't know why, but you have to have the right motivations in building a business. And there's probably a more fundamental question, like, why should you even build a business? Like, this is like a very, very simple question. But it's very important for everybody, especially within our community, to recognize this is how you create wealth. Full stop. There's no other way. Working for a multinational and making Coca-Cola's price ticker go up because you work in the Pakistan, the Pakistani branch, or the General Motors branch or Toyota branch of Pakistan. That actually doesn't actually sustain the community. It sustains your family, sustains you, which is fantastic. And it does create jobs that are local, which is good. But the money is fundamentally going to whoever owns that company. And that tends not to mean Pakistan, it's a multinational. So the key takeaway, and one of the big insights I had early on, is wealth is really only created through this creative process. And that really means today's vernacular is founding a company and being the owner of the company. And another mistake that I think lots of non-American and specifically non-Silicon Valley founders make is they hoard that equity and they don't actually incentivize their employees through ownership. As their employees, they can, like everything, everyone can see through their motivations. Everyone thinks they're really smart and they got the game figured out. Everyone can see your motivation. If you're not giving equity up to your employees, they're not going to be incentivized. It's just that simple. And what really works in Silicon Valley is everybody owns a part of the company. And so even in Applied, there's probably 50, 100 millionaires now. I mean, a significant number, probably more to 100, closer to 100 than 50, because they own a part of the company. And so if there's any takeaway you get from the talk, which is the way you fundamentally create wealth is you start something. And the way that you sustain it in a community or country is that the owners are actually the employees. You obviously can own more, but the owners are the employees. Google alone, just this area in Mountain View, created 10,000 millionaires. 10,000 millionaires. If Detroit had just 50 millionaires moving into downtown, it would change the community, let alone, and that's only Google, doesn't include, LinkedIn and Intuit and WhatsApp and Instagram and Facebook and Apple and NVIDIA. And, there's such a long list just literally within 20 minutes of here that it's almost comical. But so the system works, the Silicon Valley system works. But so sometimes people try to copy and paste the Silicon Valley system, and they just try to copy the we make a lot of money part. And they don't copy all the other parts, which are like, it's a software business. It's very sophisticated. People work really hard. They give ownership to employees. The employees work really hard. Everyone works together. There's low attrition. Then when those people leave, they start their own companies, and the founders want, we've talked about this multiple times, like a future founders program. We promote people from in the company to start companies. And we don't have this insecurity that they're going to leave. I expect every one of the people in my company to ultimately leave. And it'd be great if they start companies rather than just go work at Google or go work at Facebook.
Yes, sir. This is
tangential point. Sorry.